got it. Thank you so much, Daniel. And thanks, everybody, for joining us today. We are excited to spend some time with you this afternoon. So we'll start off by just doing a couple of quick introductions, and then we'll get right to it. So my name is Steve Smith. I'm a payroll account executive here at Greenshades. Been with the organization for a couple of years, and as you can see, been in the industry for 20 plus. I think once you get beyond 20, you just tack on the plus, so you don't have to confess. Home is here in New Orleans, where I've got this dog I'm fostering, a beautiful lab named Cabo, curled up next to me. He may jump up for some camera time. We'll see what happens. And we've also got my colleague, Jerika.
I'm jealous because I really want some moisture from New Orleans right now. But my name is Jerika Holtzen. I am a product marketing manager here at Greenshades. Have a focus in payroll, but also some experience in HCM training. So a little knowledge across the board. And I own a little Shiba Inu named Fuji, and he's my whole world.
Awesome. Yeah, so this is a dog-friendly webinar.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Okay. So before we can talk about making payroll more efficient, we've got to talk about the true cost, the true impact of errors in payroll today. So let's talk about that a little bit. In order to maximize efficiency, as we said, you really need to know how much those errors can really cost the organization. And in our experience, they really fall into a few key categories. And you can see them here. The first is financial penalties and fines. So non-compliance with tax laws, wage and hour laws, and other payroll regulations, that can lead to substantial fines and penalties from government bodies. And beyond fines, you might face legal actions or even audits. And those proceedings can be costly, time-consuming, and damaging to a company's reputation. So compliance issues like misclassification of employees or as independent contractors, for example, or failing to pay overtime appropriately are common triggers for legal challenges. And it doesn't stop there. Reputational damage. News of those compliance failures can harm an organization's reputation among its customers, investors, and even potential future employees. Damaged reputation can lead to decreased customer trust, difficulties recruiting top talent, and potentially a decrease in business from clients who prefer compliant partners. There's also employee dissatisfaction and turnover. So errors in payroll can lead to incorrect paychecks, which directly impact employee morale and trust. And this can increase turnover rates, lead to disengagement, and just overall negatively impact workplace culture. And then finally, operational disruptions. Addressing these compliance issues often requires significant management attention and resources, diverting them from other strategic activities. And correcting errors may involve recalculating payroll, amending filings, and dealing with employee queries, all of which can strain operational resources. So persistent payroll issues can consume a disproportionate share of management's time, potentially affecting their ability to make strategic decisions and plan for future growth.
Stephen, I definitely agree with this stat over on the side. 49% of employees are looking for a new job after incorrect paychecks. Because I definitely worked part-time and literally had 3 incorrect paychecks. One, because they were changing systems. One, because my manager forgot to put my time in. And I don't even know what happened with the last one, but I no longer have a part-time job.
Quickest way to make you decide to update your resume, right?
Exactly.
Okay, so let's talk about some of the common payroll pitfalls in more detail and how to avoid them. So first, classification. So for example, misclassifying employees as either exempt or non-exempt can determine how they're paid when it comes to overtime, what minimum wage they might receive. Full-time versus contract workers can affect how employees are taxed and how they need to be provided for in terms of W-2s versus 1099s. One of the biggest areas we see as a payroll pitfall is time tracking. So if you've got under or over reporting of work hours, difficulty collecting hours for things like travel or meetings, non-common working hours. And of course, it's always the case of buddy punches and unethical time tracking. So all of those can be challenges. And then just incorrectly calculating payroll once it gets more complex. So when we think about missing overtime or shift differentials, commissions, deductions, all those things can cause you to over or underpay an associate. And I think we can all relate to this. We always hear if somebody is underpaid, and we never hear if they're overpaid. So kind of goes with the territory, right?
Never hear a complaint about overpayments.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And then record keeping. Disorganized or incomplete record keeping can affect the business negatively in many ways. I mean, at a minimum, it makes your admin time more complicated than it has to be. And at worst, you can face an audit without information you need. It can result overall in higher labor costs, poor decision-making, and cranky employees. And so here's a real world example when we're looking at Parks Marina, and by using Greenshades, you can see they were able to make improvements that reduce their payroll overhead. We enhance their automation. In that process, saved half a day work and optimized multi-entity management for their organization. And the impact to them, $50,000 annually. So that's a real world example.
Yes, Steven, I think this is a great example because Parks Arena dealt with a lot of seasonal shifts. So during the summertime, they were super busy. And so during the summertime, they had increased payroll complexities. They needed to issue payments that were normal. So a lot of things that could be really time consuming. But with Greenshades, they were able to cut down on that time. They didn't need that higher extra help.
Yep.
So thank you for that, Steven. So we talked about some of the common pitfalls. And I think a lot of times when people hear about payroll accuracy and speeding up the process, they think they have to sacrifice accuracy for efficient payroll processing. So as I kind of talked about before, piggybacking off of Steven, the Parks Arena case, right? So they were able to save a lot of time and make their payroll process a lot more efficient with an in-house solution. So what does that mean? When you're setting up your payroll on the back end, you want to have that flexibility and configurability to be able to make the payroll process fit your unique needs. So what does that mean? In the back end, if you do have these payroll complexities, as we talked about, incorrect payroll calculations is one of the biggest pitfalls we see with payroll. You're able to set up unlimited payroll codes. So if you're paying employee shift differentials, maybe you're manufacturing, you're paying your employees by piecework. Maybe you have a lot of employees with garnishments, whatever you may see coming in. So you're able to take those items and set them up in the back end to fit your organization's unique needs. And that gives you a lot more of an agile approach when it comes to processing payroll. And then back to that Parks Arena case, something we also saw with the in-house solution is giving them that flexibility to run payroll on their terms. So they were able to issue a limited pay runs, off-cycle paychecks, termination pay, as the season got a little bit more hectic without having to reach out to their third-party provider, which can take a lot of time on the back end, whether it's 5 minutes waiting go home, waiting in a queue, waiting for emails, employees waiting for their checks. It can take a lot of time to slow down your payroll processing in general. And then lastly, efficient operations. So you're saving your team time on the back end by setting up stuff on the front end of your payroll. So you get the payroll processing, you set up your company's unique PTO policies, benefits codes, payroll codes to handle commissions, bonuses, whatever you have. So when you get the payroll processing, it's a lot more of an efficient process. So once you set stuff up on the back end, you're able to go into your payroll workflow and process everything from start to finish in one simple workflow. So that goes from adding in your employees, validating their timesheets. Again, back in the beginning, we talked about how timesheets can be a big gap when it comes to accurate payroll. You're able to quickly just go through, verify the timesheets are in there. Maybe you're like, I know this employee worked this week. Why are they not in my payroll? You can make sure that they're added in. Make sure those work locations are in as well, because you want to be able to account for that when it comes to taxation and location-specific workplace laws. And then automatic calculations for complex payroll. So like as I just talked about, setting up that stuff in the back end, those payroll codes. If you know you have commission, if you know you need to issue bonuses, if you know that you have employees working overtime and maybe you're offering shift differentials, imagine calculating that manually. You can go ahead and have it in on the back end. So once you get to your payroll, it's attached to your associate and you can make payroll processing swift. And then lastly, if you're using, I'm sorry, Steven, go ahead.
That's okay. I was just going to add, I think that the way I think of it is as a best practice, even if you're doing something really complex in terms of your pay calculations, and goodness, I've run across so many different aspects of this, just folks calculating pay in very unique ways. Still as a best practice, it's a great idea to explore the idea of automating that. And with Greenshades, there are plenty of opportunities to do that.
Thanks for calling it out, Steven. I know I can be a little bit of the actor, so sometimes it's nice if you slow me down. I can get to going about these things. So thank you for heading that in. And then lastly, if you're using Sage Intacct or your supported ERP system, you can easily sync those payroll batches to your GL. And again, we were setting stuff up on the back end. Think about those custom fields. If you're tracking employees by location, projects, clients, set that up on the back end. So when you send these results off, just a few clicks of a button, it can automatically mint for you and you're not having to do that on the back end. So next, let's talk about everybody's favorite thing, compliance. So Greenshades did a little research and we found that nearly 50% of professionals feel like they're average or worse, like keeping up with compliance changes. And as we know, compliance is constantly evolving, right? We see minimum wage laws increasing every year. We see overtime laws changing state by state. For example, in Alabama, now if you're working overtime, your overtime wages are exempt from taxation. We see minimum wage changing a lot. And depending on what state you're in, let's say you're in New York, depending on what region employees work in, taxation could be different. And then we find that almost 40% of employers also feel like they don't have the necessary tools to keep up with this. So this goes beyond just keeping up with the compliance updates, but also as you're processing payroll, do you have the tools to keep up with these changes? Are you automatically adjusting on the back end, or do you have to manually keep up with these things, slowing down your processes and overall making you less efficient?
Yeah, that's where a trusted partner comes in. Feeling peace of mind that you know your partner is going to keep up with those changes. To your point, Jerika, California just recently instituted a $20 minimum wage, but only for fast food franchises and only for franchises with a certain number of outlets and locations. So this stuff is complicated.
It gets very complex. And to your point, California may be doing this one thing, maybe Nevada is doing something different. If you got employees at both locations, how are you keeping up with these changes for both places? So when it comes to payroll accuracy, to Stephen's point, having an expert on the back end can be very beneficial to your payroll processing overall. So as you're keeping up with FLSA, it always gets me when I say it out loud, FLSA compliance, you want a provider that will automatically adjust to these workplace laws for you. So example, if your organization has tipped employees, let's say the tips that they bring in and the hours they work still doesn't bring their wages to what they would make with your minimum law or minimum wage requirement based off of your state. Maybe it's California, you're a fast food worker or a restaurant worker. Maybe you're bringing in those tips and you're still not at the wage you would get with minimum wage. You want a provider that will automatically adjust to make sure you're in compliance. Maybe you have wage garnishments. By law, you can't discriminate against employees who do have garnishments. So you want to make sure that those are coming out in equitable order. And as I talked about earlier, set things up on the back end. So go ahead and have those garnishments set up on the back end. So when you're processing payroll, those garnishments will automatically be applied, but also ensure that your employees are still being paid their bare minimum of wages that they should receive by law. Then we talked a lot about having employees working across multiple jurisdictions. So as it comes to location-based tax withholdings, it can get a little complex in states like Ohio, New York, where maybe there's local laws. So maybe you have your state withholdings, your federal withholdings, and you have local withholdings, which how exciting because you get 3 payroll deductions coming out, but maybe you have a lot of different withholdings to account for. So being able to have those accurate rates based off of locations. And then lastly, any other deductions. So maybe it's benefits, maybe it's time off, or any other thing that may be coming out of your employee's paycheck. Maybe it's arrears, employees owe some wages. So make sure those other deductions are coming out.
All right. Thank you for that, Jerika. I really appreciate it. Okay. So now let's talk about how to turn that data into dollars. So let's talk about that concept of turning data into dollars. And we'll do an example of this, how this might work in the real world. So our company today is Greenco manufacturing industry, about 250 employees with challenges. The challenge to transform labor data into actionable financial insights through dimensional accounting. And let's talk about the specifics. Lots of challenges here Greenco faced. First, outdated processes. They were using a solution that didn't have true integration, allowing for manual processes that could lead to error when transferring data. And the labor reported was not mapped to a specific department, location, or project. So they were not receiving true segmented insights into how labor is affecting their finances. And then they were using manual calculations for items such as piecework as they produce flamingos, in this case. Overtime, shift differentials, and more became complex. It was hard to calculate the proper tax withholdings. And that's where Greenshades and Sage Intact can help.
Yeah, make sure we're accounting for all the flamingos.
Absolutely. So how did we do it? With Greenshades and Sage, the results and benefits are applicable in a few different categories. So first, enhanced financial insights. So we were able to enable detailed analysis of labor costs by department, project, and location by leveraging Greenshades integration to Sage Intact's dimensional accounting. And this resulted in improved budgeting accuracy and more strategic decision-making overall. Also, improved efficiency. We were able to reduce payroll processing time by automating the data flow between Greenshades and Sage Intacct. And of course, this automation also eliminated manual data entry errors from rekeying. The whole process streamlined compliance. We generate accurate, detailed reports for compliance audits with seamless payroll data integration. And all of this reduced compliant risks with timely and accurate reporting. So basically, by integrating Greenshades payroll with Sage Intacct's dimensional accounting, our company was able to transform its labor data into meaningful financial insights. And that allowed the organization to optimize labor costs, improve decision-making, and enhance strategic planning.
I love this first point about seamlessly integrating your ERP, because it's so much easier to literally, labor is your greatest expense. You want to make sure it's accurately accounted for. So be able to tie it accurately to projects, clients, whatever you're tracking saves so much time on the back end.
Yep. Okay. So as we talked about, part of this process involves leveraging dimensional accounting for labor insights. So this integration between Greenshades and Sage Intacct's dimensional accounting is the process by which you can tie that labor to specific areas, better segment your budgeting, and gain a clear understanding of where labor dollars are being spent across departments, locations, projects, or any other unique fields that your organization requires. So with those clear insights into labor costs, you can more effectively manage budgets. And the way that works is you manage and set up those dimensions in Sage Intacct. The integration picks them up, brings them over to Greenshades payroll, and syncs them to custom fields so that you can tie your labor and identify it appropriately, and therefore enable that powerful reporting and analysis back in Intacct. So a few tips for successful dimensional accounting. Be sure to bring over items particular to your organization. By mapping unlimited dimensions, you can decide how to set this up in a way that benefits your organization to deliver the insights that you need. Make sure you're mapping your GL batches to the correct GL inside Sage Intacct for journal entry reviews, and set up those custom fields, as I mentioned, inside Greenshades to help map labor to the correct department, location, or project for precise reporting inside Sage. And here, just a quick look at that overall bi-directional integration. You can see over here that the integration applies on several levels. You can see employee records, general ledger accounts, those ever important dimensions, timesheets, job fields, and journal entries. And the impact overall is, again, to tie those two systems tightly together so that you have an output post-payroll that allows you better insights into your business.
Perfect. Thank you for that, Stephen. We're going to close out here soon. I just want to give you guys a few key takeaways. So first, we went through some of the common compliance pitfalls, and now that you're aware of them, just watch out for them during your payroll processing. With an enhanced payroll solution, it can help you keep track of these and quickly alert you to areas of concern while still keeping your payroll process swift and efficient. And then lastly, optimizing your payroll data for dimensional accounting. So using this data to create better insights for your organization and future budgeting. And we are Greenshades. We're a comprehensive solution tailored to fit the needs of Sage Intacct customers. We provide payroll, human resources, benefits administration, tax and compliance. So this includes payroll tax reporting and year reporting, as well as time and labor management. But we would like to thank you guys for joining us today. And as a gift to you all, we will be sending out a piece of collateral as a follow-up with 10 tips to make your payroll processing more efficient. And if you have any questions or if you would like a personalized demo, please feel free to contact us today. We would love to hear from you guys.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time today, everyone.